What's up, everybody? JTW here, and in this educational video, I'm going to be covering the system that I use for confirming whether or not we have broken support or resistance. When it comes to the daily SPY plan that I post each morning, the most common question I get when it comes to that plan is how do I know whether or not we've got a confirmed break of X resistance or a confirmed break of X support? This is a great strategy. It's pretty easy to pick up and learn, in my particular opinion. You can also use it to confirm breaks of support or resistance on really any ticker that you might have on watch. It's also a really good system for determining when it's time to stop out. Whenever a mental stop level is posted, if you're watching that price level, this can help you potentially avoid stopping out early or unnecessarily on a trade that could ultimately work out for profit just because we printed a little bit higher or lower than a particular stop level. This might give you those, more iron hands when it comes to your trading. So we're going to be looking at the SPY plan from February 11th. We're going to be using the replay feature on TradingView. So, we will have some prior knowledge, obviously, with being in the past of what SPY is going to do on this particular day. I already know that, yes, we're going to see the put plan work out very nicely in the early part of the day. I'm also going to show you how you can then sort of reverse engineer the plan for a bounce entry on SPY. So with that said, I want to cover real quick just a couple of things that I'm looking for on this chart to determine a confirmed break of support or resistance, and then we'll show some examples. So I'm watching the 5-minute chart here because I find it gets you into the trade early enough, but not too early if you follow some simple rules. And those rules would be, one, I'm looking for a candle to close either above or below the levels I have on watch. Number two, I want a confirmation candle after that candle closes above or below that resistance or support. That second candle, I'm looking for it to push higher or lower than the higher or lowest point of the candle that broke the level that we had on watch. And ideally, what I want to see before I get into a trade is I want to see those candles start to separate from those levels that we have on watch. Sometimes they can break and push just slightly higher or slightly lower, and then ultimately kind of wind up glued to this level. And when it comes to short expiration contracts, which is what we're using a lot of time for the SPY plans, it's either 0 day or the following day's expiration. It keeps us from getting into a potential scenario where we're just having theta eat up those contracts, and obviously we want to wait to get in when the actual moves are going to happen. So let's take a look at some examples. This will start to make a lot more sense once you see it in practice. So you'll see me playing and pausing quite a bit just so I can stop and maybe talk about some things that we're seeing on the chart. All right, so first thing that we'll notice here early on into the day of the 11th is we have these candles start pushing above this level, but they're not closing above the level that we've got on watch for a potential entry on calls. So a lot of times you'll see, if a 391.49 was, let's say, a stop level that gets published for some reason, somebody's in a put call or a put trade, and they publish that as a stop loss level. A lot of times people will stop out just because they see 391.59 or some number higher than 391.49 print on the ticker, but that doesn't mean that that level's broken. And as you can see, the candles are actually showing it's holding up pretty well as resistance. So let's continue to watch and see how things happen. So again, we had a candle close above, and now we might have been on watch for a potential call entry. So this next candle would have been our confirmation candle to actually take a trade. And what we would have wanted to see is that candle remain separated, in other words, have some space between the entirety of the candle, the wick and the body, and that 391.49 level. And we would have wanted it to go up above the wick on this candle prior. However, as we can see, it immediately rejected, so this is still a no trade right here. And so now we're looking at a potential entry on puts. This candle has dropped down, and closed below our entry level for puts, but we're still not there. We're still waiting for a confirmation candle. Now, that candle momentarily looked like it was going to break and break lower. It was kind of hard to see because of how quickly it formed and how quickly I've got things set to move here on the replay feature, but it was never fully separated from that 390.69 level. I know that was hard to see, so I just wanted to call that out. So we're still watching, still waiting to get into a trade. Now it's getting interesting. Now we've got a candle closed below. You've got these two wicks that we're now basically waiting to see if we can get a candle to move lower than those two wicks. And we also want it to be separated from this 390.69 support level that is now starting to act as resistance. And that would be the candle that we would then take our entry on. So what happened, again, we've got separation from that 390.69 level. And by the time we pushed down here, would have been where we would have wanted to enter and take puts. And with our ultimate price target being at 389.27 from the SPY plan that day. So let's watch how this plays out. And it, obviously on this day it happened quite quick, but here's our big drop and where we would have started scaling out contracts for profit. When I post the daily SPY plan, I want to make sure that I'm always giving you guys safe targets that will, make sure that we're closing out contracts for profit. But obviously, if your risk tolerance allows it, or if you're at a point where you can close out enough contracts to have free runners at this point once we hit PT2, by all means, feel free to hold these things longer. I just want to make sure that the entries and exits that I'm giving you guys are safe, as safe as they possibly can be, and the most likely to generate some good profit if you're following the plan. But again, you can always hold a contract or two past my ultimate price targets if that suits your strategy. So if we watch how SPY continues to play out on this day, we see that we ultimately come down and hit this fib or just above it as our low of the day. And from here forward, we're going to be pushing for a bounce move. Now, this 389.27 was PT2 for puts. So if we're looking at taking a potential bounce trade, like I said, we can sort of reverse engineer our price targets from the put plan. And so now we've got 389.27, which was PT2 for puts. Now this could be an entry for a bounce trade on calls, with our first target being 390.05, second target being 390.69, which is where we entered on puts. I would also want to, if I'm looking at this level, have a stop loss level in mind. With this being the later part of the day, I'd want to play a pretty tight stop, so I'd be looking at this 388.98 support level if and when we push back over 389.27 to be my stop loss level for a mental stop. So let's see what happens and see when we should get in on this bounce trade. And so right here is where I would be getting in on a bounce trade for calls, again, with an ultimate target at 390.69. So, maybe something like a 390 call with it being later in the day. I want to play that a little bit safer, even though we're already pretty close to being at 390. Those contracts shouldn't be too terribly expensive with as much data as they've burned off so far on this particular day. So our entry candle would be this white candle right here. Even though it is a small sell candle, we do have the properties that we're looking for. We've got a candle right here that closes above 389.27. This candle has separation from that level and has a point where it did push above the highest point on this candle. So on this candle right here, we're good to take calls and see how that trade works out. So again, watching how SPY plays out. Again, looking at that 388.98 level, saying, okay, that's our stop level. If we confirm a break of that, well, yes, we did print lower, but we never separated. We had one candle kind of close below, but even this sell candle right afterward closed above that level. So again, this trade is still in play and intact. Again, another big print below. This is, where you have to have strong hands, be patient, and not get shook out on those types of things, because again, we're waiting for that confirmation that we've actually lost that support, which we haven't, still haven't lost it. And now we start to make progress towards our price targets. We're now over PT1, and right there at the end of the day, we do hit our ultimate price target for the bounce trade on calls, again, by basically reverse engineering the put plan for the day. So I hope that this is helpful not only for helping you guys execute trades with the daily SPY plan, but also in all of your trading in general. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me a DM anytime, and I will do my best to respond as quickly as I possibly can. Stay green, stay safe, happy trading.